So I'm more of the intuitive type. So sometimes I'll get stuff. I don't understand how I get it, but my brain will process it in a very systemic way. People tend to focus on just certain areas, but I like to see the overall system, or not see it, but feel the overall system and how things click together. So whenever someone's talking about one specific subject, my brain kind of like wires it to all other subjects. And that happens all the time, so I can't turn it off.
Do you want to be part of the podcast? Go to shanesbraindomain.com and click on the Aphantasia section. There you will find a question or prompt and an opportunity to contribute your thoughts and experiences. Simply record and submit your response, and you could be featured on a future episode. Aphantasia is a condition characterized by an inability to visualize mental images in one's mind. If you have just discovered that you or someone you love has aphantasia, or if you're just fascinated by the subject in general and love learning more about it, you are in the right place. The Discovering Your Mind podcast delves into all aspects of the mind's eye, including aphantasia, hyperphantasia, and everything in between. Today's interview is intriguing because it was very hard to pin down exactly what is happening in Alex's mind, even more so than most. In my interview with my nephew, Shane, he said something fairly profound. He said that because aphantasia is so rare, our language hasn't evolved to properly explain it. I think this is definitely the case with Alex. I don't think the words we have can properly explain what he is experiencing. Alex has only known about aphantasia for about a month or so I'm sure that's having an effect as well. Alex initially told me that he has aphantasia. I'm not 100% convinced of that, but he is definitely in the aphantasia neighborhood. My best guess would be that he has hypophantasia, but I'm not 100% sure of that either. I'm not quite sure what to make of it, other than it is a fascinating interview, and it shines a light on how beautifully unique we all are. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Discovering Your Mind podcast, brought to you by shanesbraindomain.com. I am your host, Shane Williams, also known as Shane's Brain, and today we're talking to the one and only Alex, who I just met a couple seconds ago. How you doing there, Alex?
I'm good. It's nice to be here today, talk about this. How about you?
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Where are you at over there? You're in Canada somewhere?
Yeah, so I live in Montreal. I'm actually French, but I decided to move to Montreal, and my mother's American. So I'm a bit of Europe, a bit of the States, and mostly Canada now. Yeah.
Okay. So you're bilingual or more than that?
Yeah, bilingual, bicultural, by nationality, all the bis. Well, not all the bis, I guess.
All right. Well, cool. Well, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do for a living, what you like to do for fun, and those sorts of things?
So I graduated as an engineer back in France. Then I realized I didn't want to be an engineer, so I transitioned very fast to the project management realm in telecommunications, and I've been working in that field for the past 15 years as a project manager and also as a manager. And most recently, I decided to create my own business, and that's mostly due to the fact that I really adore the mind too. So that's something we have in common, but also helping other people figure out their own mind. And so going into my own coaching business.
Okay. So what kind of coaching? Is it like spiritual stuff or business stuff, or what is it?
So that's a good question. So I have a very systemic view of things, and that includes spirituality. However, if this is to be more a transition from where I was at professionally to where I'm at now, I can use spiritual themes, but I won't refer to them as so. But that is part of what I do as systemic way of understanding oneself. So basically is use the chakra system in order to have certain themes. And then I transpose those themes into like a professional or a psychological realm. And from there, I bring in new tools for the person to actually play with and to discover. And then that's part of the toolkit box I have for the initial coaching business, basically.
Okay. All right. What about hobbies and stuff like that? What do you like to do for fun?
I'm big on music. I DJ every week for the pleasure of it. I usually also gravitate towards graphic novels and audiobooks.
In this episode, we will be referring to what we call the Apple Graph. If you would like to view the Apple Graph to play along and better understand what we're talking about, you can find it on shanesbraindomain.com in the Aphantasia and Beyond section. If you are unable to view the Apple Graph for whatever reason, it is a graph divided into 6 sections. In the number 6 section, there is a very detailed image of a red apple. In the number 5 section, it is the same image but with less detail. Number 4 is still in color but has less detail and more basic shapes instead of detailed hues and gradients. Number 3 is the less detailed apple but in gray tones without the color. Number 2 is a simple outline of the apple. And number 1 is blank, indicating no visualization whatsoever. This is called aphantasia. So I want you to imagine a red apple in your mind. I'm going to share my screen with you real quick. There's 6 choices there. Which one of those best represents what you saw in your mind's eye?
Well, what I saw was a memory of an apple I saw at the store the other day that just like kind of flashed at me. So I just got like one bit of it, and it's closer to 4. But then once I got that bit, everything disappeared. So there is some temporal aspect to it. Like I get a flash, but that's all I get. I never get any closer up details or pictures. So I guess it alternates from 4 to 1 to answer your question.
Okay, very interesting.
I went to see a hypnotherapist, and yes, he was asking me, okay, so imagine you're in your kitchen. Do you see your kitchen? So I said, yeah, I can see it, but I realized I didn't. I just had like spatial awareness of everything, of where everything was, but I couldn't see it. So it's this weird thing where I can see without seeing because I can feel stuff from spatial memory. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, kind of, I guess. So the flash interests me. There are some people that are called hypophantasia. Have you ever heard of that term?
No, I haven't heard of that one.
What it is low visualization. It's what I've always called people with almost aphantasia. Like they're right there, kind of on the border, but they can sometimes see very basic outlines of things. Or another thing they describe as the flashes. So let's talk about that a little bit more before we move on. Is there any time you ever visualize something and it appears kind of like that number 2 square that I just showed you, where it's just a simple outline of something?
No, it's usually all dark the rest of the time.
Okay. So the flash is, would you say it's a thought, or would you describe it as an image?
I guess that's a tricky question. I think it's tapping into what I had seen in the past as a visual flash, like more of a memory of the past. Even if it has some visual aspect to it, I won't see an apple in front of me, but I'll remember I had seen an apple that was red. And it's not like I can see it as part of something. It just like comes by, I see it, and then it goes away. Yeah, it's hard to describe. I don't know if it's actually visual or more mental.
You can't quite tell?
I can't quite tell. Why?
Okay. All right. That is very, very cool and very interesting. So the next thing I'd like you to do is imagine a horse in your mind. Is it like looking at a picture, or more of just a thought, or something else?
Yeah, it feels more like looking at a picture this time. Yeah. Yeah. I kind of saw like one of my daughter's drawings come up. That's what I saw. I felt come up. It was more like tapping into my memory than actually seeing a horse in and of itself. What?
When you thought of the horse, did it have any background associated with it, or was it just isolated?
It was just isolated. I didn't see any background. I didn't even see the body. I just saw like I guess I saw. I could feel like a face, like the face of the horse come up. That's the only part I could figure when you tell me to focus on that.
Was there any color in the thought or the image?
Yeah, it felt round, but it was just like a general outline, nothing too specific.
When you're imagining something, is there any difference between having your eyes closed or your eyes open when you do it?
I have a hard time falling asleep, so I usually have something in the background, because if I don't have the lights on, then it's completely blank for me. So regardless if I have my eyes closed or open, I won't necessarily visualize anything, which is why when I have my eyes open, I don't feel a need to see anything different. But when I have my eyes closed, I feel some sort of void.
Okay. What about dimension? Was there any sort of dimension to the horse? Was it 2D? Was it 3D? Could you tell anything like that?
It was just 2D. Yeah. It was like a drawing, basically. A flash of a drawing of the head. And it was kind of brown. That's what I got. Nothing else. No movement, no outlined.
Can you manipulate the image? For example, could you put a birthday hat on the horse in your mind?
No. No.
All right.
No, that doesn't work. No.
Okay. You said there wasn't any movement. Could you create movement? Could you try and think about a horse that's running?
Yeah, I guess I remember, like, from watching a horse in the past, like the muscles, how they move. I could get a general sense of that, but not like the whole picture. Yeah, it's mostly remembering what it feels like than what it actually looks like.
Did you get the flash with that as well? Or was it more of just a thought? I'm just trying to...
It was more of a thought. It was more of a thought. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, it's hard to describe. And it's also very new to me. So I'm still trying to figure all this out. This is actually helping me a lot. These are good questions. All right.
If the horse made a sound, could you hear it in your mind?
Yeah, sounds are okay for me. Yeah.
Okay.
I can get music and sounds. I don't hear voices. Well, not always, and not often, but
okay.
Mostly I can hear sounds and music. What?
Next thing I'd like you to do is we're going to do sequence visualization. So now imagine a cup on a table that you accidentally knock over.
Okay.
Okay. What type of cup was it?
It was just a general outline of a plastic cup, I guess. Something very simple. Yeah.
Okay.
No details whatsoever. Yeah.
Right. So you couldn't tell necessarily what the cup was made of or what color the cup was or anything like that?
It was just a general outline for the purpose of having a cup on, some surface, which felt like a table, I guess.
Okay. What detail, if any, did you get with the table or the surface?
Well, it was flat table, mostly oval, but no colors, just like a general grayish. And then the glass was kind of white, and on top of it, and then I imagined it off of it. So yeah, it was more of a thought process than a visual process, or a bit of a mix of both. I was trying to get a general outline of what you were describing, and then I imagined the movement, but I didn't see it. What?
Okay. So do you know how the cup got knocked over? Is there any detail there?
No, it was just, it fell off. It was, I was already at the edge, and then it fell off.
Okay.
Like wind or something.
Was there anything in the cup? Did anything spill out of it?
No.
Okay.
Nothing.
Did the sequence appear as a video in your mind or something else? What was it like?
It was more like of a comic strip. Like you go from one part to another. So one part, you said there was like a table with the glass. So I imagined that, and then you said, all right, the glass is off the table, and then I imagined the glass on the floor, kind of like falling off, but nothing. Yeah, it was a bit blurry, to be honest. The part from glass was on the table to the part that it was on the floor, actually.
Okay.
So yeah, maybe more of a comic strip. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I've never heard that description before. That's cool. Do you have any idea why your mind went to what it went to? Like, was there any familiarity to the cup or the table that you can identify in your real life, or was it completely made up? Is there any detail there you can go into?
I think the table was a table I saw not too long ago here, and the glass was the glass I gave to my kids this morning for breakfast. So that's how it worked. I think that's how I associate it both way. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there were some specifics then involved.
Well, it's not the actual table I saw. It's like a general outline of the form of the table,
Okay.
And then the glass was like a generic glass for the whole series of small IKEA plastic glasses I have at home.
Gotcha. So kind of specific, but not really. Still pretty general. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. And what about the sound in this one? Did you hear the sound? Did you hear the cup tip over or splash or anything?
No sounds. Yeah, I just focused on trying to imagine the visuals. I didn't think of adding sounds to it.
Okay.
Or special effects.
Could you add sound if you wanted to?
Yeah, most definitely. Mm-hmm.
Okay. We've used the word imagine here a few times, and that is a word that definitely means different things to different people.
Mm-hmm.
So what do the words imagine or imagination mean to you? How would you define those?
That's a tough one. Thank you. No, so I think it's something that's necessarily out of your ordinary present time. That's a way to describe it. So when you use your imagination, what I would say for maybe someone who feels less visual, you get a feeling from a situation which is not necessarily the present moment. And that allows you to tap into creating something that's outside of where you are now, regardless of what it might be. But necessarily, it's associated with your emotions. And so it starts with your emotions, and then you can either visualize or feel it, I guess, with other senses. And it's mostly what's not going on at the present moment. That's how so feelings and different types of outputs is what can, how I would define imagination.
Would you describe your thoughts or your imagination as detailed or vague or something else?
So I'm more of the intuitive type. So sometimes I'll get stuff. I don't understand how I get it, but my brain will process it in a very systemic way. People tend to focus on just certain areas, but I like to see the overall system, or not see it, but feel the overall system and how things click together. So whenever someone's talking about one specific subject, my brain kind of like wires it to all other subjects. And that happens all the time, so I can't turn it off.
Wow, that is pretty cool. How would you describe what a thought is to you?
I'm going to take this one from the spiritual point. So I like to think that we have our body, our mind, and our soul. Our thoughts are when the mind can actually focus on what's going on in the body or in the soul, and that's how you create thoughts. Tapping into the wisdom you have in your body, which is like information, and then trying to go into like the soul's part, which is where the answers to all the questions are, in a way. Right. So this is how I see it. So that's how you can create thoughts, and that comes out in very different ways. It can be in your head, it can be in speech, it could be visual, it could be just a feeling.
Right. So you're saying that it's all the same core thing to everybody. It just will come out and manifest itself in different ways, depending on, however our brains are, or whatever other human aspects there are to it. Well,
the input is your body, and everyone has a different body, right? And then the mind is also how you process the information, and everyone has different belief systems and different cultures, environments. So that twists it too. So it's kind of like a kaleidoscope, where you see like transforming images all the time. I think the mind works that way, and thoughts can be created in multiple different forms that way too.
Okay, very cool. In general, when you close your eyes, what do you see?
Well, not much.
All right.
Yeah.
Is it just darkness, or
it's basically darkness, which I've realized I've been trying to avoid my whole life by keeping busy with something that was visual. That was maybe not accepting some part of myself. So yeah, I've been experiencing more let's not try and do anything and see what it does to just stare into the void kind of thing over the past weeks, which is interesting.
Okay.
But mostly, it's just blank and dark when I close my eyes. Yeah.
Can you think of nothing if you want to?
That's tough. I'm always thinking of something. Thinking of nothing is kind of like a mind twist. The question I would ask is, what is your next thought? And that actually gets you into thinking about nothing.
Okay, how so?
Well, whenever you ask someone that question, it's kind of hard for them to imagine what their next thought will be, because it's kind of like a long-going branching process that you can't really always fully control. So trying to think of the next one will get you into thinking of nothing.
That's interesting. I'll have to start asking people that, see what they say.
I'm always thinking of something. That's why I kind of distract my mind with some stuff around me to fall asleep, because otherwise my head will just keep spinning and spinning and spinning.
Okay.
Or branching thoughts, going from one to another. And
does your ability to visualize vary depending on circumstances, details, and events?
If it's still fresh in my memory, I can get like glimpses of the visuals, but I picked up on the fact that I will remember when I get strong feelings from a situation more so than the situation in itself. So if there's a strong feeling, I'll remember it, and I might be able to get like partial visuals, but it's more like of a general outline. There's nothing that's ever specific. Like I could remember, okay, so maybe the couch was there and the room was there. I don't know what the couch looks like. I don't know what the table looks like, but I remember they were there. So it's like a general outline of the space. That's how I get my visual memories, I guess.
When you imagine things, are they things you've seen before, or do you ever create new and unique things in your mind?
No, it's mostly what I've seen before. Most definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about the mind audio. Do you have an inner monologue?
Yes.
What does that mean to you? That's another term that I've found means something different to everybody. So what is your inner monologue? What's it like?
There's a part of me that's my mind is just wandering off. So that's like free for all thinking. And then sometimes I'll have more of a conversation with myself to understand things. But then again, I will go into branching very quickly. So I guess one part is conscious and the other one is unconscious. That's how I differentiate both of them for the inner dialogue. Yeah.
So is it audible though? Do you hear it?
No, I don't hear it per se. No, but it goes on in my head and I can listen to it without the audio. Yeah, that's kind of weird.
Okay.
Yeah, the thoughts are there and they just keep like bouncing off each other and going in different directions.
Okay. So earlier you told me that you do have some sound in your mind. So how does that manifest? Like I asked if you could hear the horse, you could hear the horse, right?
Mm-hmm.
You also told me that you could add sound to the cup tipping over. Am I right in assuming that you can add sound if you want to?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Usually how it works is I have songs on top of what's going on. So I've created my own music diary through DJing. So basically I take the chronological days of the week and then I will think of what happened during that day, add songs to that, and I'll record what has been going on through my week through DJing. And then once I think of a track, I can connect it back to the event, and that helps me actually remembering a lot of stuff. And sometimes I'll just hear a track that I DJ'd out of some other source, like on Spotify or whatnot, and that'll bring me back to the moment. So I use sound to actually remember situations more and more now. Yeah, the fact that I can't visualize, I think that's my way of having this like mental realm, I guess, that's like non-visual. Does that make any sense? That might be.
If I understand you right, that is one of the coolest things I've ever heard. So you're saying that you add soundtracks to your memories?
Yeah.
And that's how you, like, this thing here is associated with this song.
Absolutely.
And they're kind of linked together in your mind?
Absolutely. Yeah. I can sometimes listen to one of my sets and relive the whole week. So I usually use it as I don't remember everything per se, but it'll bring back a lot of feelings, and I use it as an introspective tool. So I'll listen to a set, which will be like a week, and then I'll kind of like go through my whole week and then think about that and use it as, food for reflecting on things in general. Yeah.
Wow.
I think it's more related to how I felt during that moment. And then, so that's the first part, is how I felt. I'll get some visuals because, as I told you, I will get a general outline of certain situations or certain places I was at, like I remember what my house looks like. And I remember being in this room when this happened. Yeah, so the feeling will come in. And then usually the output is, how did I respond to that situation? So I go into like, okay, this is how I felt, and how did I act? How did I react? And that's usually good information to process, is how I responded to an event. But it's usually like the feeling and then how I responded to it. And when I listen to a track, I could usually associate it with that moment because of the lyrics, the flow, the beats, whatever will be up in that track.
So do you select the track based on the memory?
Yes, absolutely.
So here you say, your thoughts have music laid on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's such a cool description, and how they're linked together. Like, I've never heard anything like that. That is way awesome.
Yeah, I'll send you the track for our conversation.
Okay. That's so cool. All right. So what does the phrase, "I have a song stuck in my head," mean to you?
Well, it's usually not the whole song. It's usually like very annoying lyrics that will loop until you get very tired of it. And then you kind of have to think of another song. I don't have that problem anymore because I just listen to so many songs that it's hard to actually have one that loops. But okay. I guess I do get it from my kids who listen to sometimes somewhat annoying music, but that's okay,
Okay. And when it's looping, could you say that that's like hearing? You hear it in that case? Or is it more of a thought?
Yeah, it has to have lyrics, I think. Yeah, that's definitely something. So I can hear the lyrics, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. So when it comes to your mind audio, on a scale from 1 to 10, how much is it like actual hearing in real life?
That's a good question. I don't know. I guess it's like mind memory or something. It's like I will remember them, and then I'll like my memory will like bring them back to me in the present moment. But is it actually a thought or the actual hearing? Yeah, it's probably just the thought the whole time. Yeah, giving me a lot of things to think about. That's perfect.
Yeah. So it kind of makes me want to try and nail down the visuals thing with you a little bit stronger. Sure. So the same kind of question, like when you're getting these flashes or you're saying these outlines, is there any level of that relates to reality? Again, like on a scale from 1 to 10, is there anything where it's like actual seeing?
If it's not a memory or something, I can't see it. So it's more like of a general sketch. Like in this 6 apples you showed me at first, it'd be between 2 and 3, I guess. That's the general idea I can get from the visuals or the general outline of what I'll be seeing.
Okay.
Nothing very
Would you
specific.
describe it, though, as seeing it?
It's weird because it's not like a remnant image. It's like a flash. So it's kind of hard to like have it stay in my head. I get a general flash of something and then it fades away. But if it's only if I focus on it. So that's interesting.
Okay. Where do you think you are on that scale with both visual and sound? Are you on that scale at all? Is what I'm wondering. Because it kind of sounds like you are a tiny bit. But. Yeah,
it does, right? But it's hard to, because as you said, like, what is it to have a thought? What is it to have a visual? What is it? Is it a thought or is it you that are hearing something? That's the tough part.
Right.
I guess I would be more closer to 4, I guess. A 3 or 4. That's how I'd put it. Yes.
Hey, fill the world with good vibes and positivity with our new Soul Relief brand t-shirts. Check it out at shanesbraindomain.com. All right, let's talk about some of the other senses. Now I would like you to imagine a chocolate chip cookie in your mind. Can you smell it in your mind?
Not really.
Okay. So can you taste it in your mind?
I can remember that taste. Yeah, I could remember tastes. Yeah.
So just on that scale of 1 to 10 again, how much is it like actual tasting?
I guess it's closer to a 6.
What about the sense of touch in your mind? Can you touch the cookie? Can you feel it in your mouth? Can you experience any sort of the sense of touch in your mind?
Yeah, on a scale of 0 to 10, maybe more of a 3 or a 4.
In this episode, we will be referring to what we call the nature picture. If you would like to view the nature picture to play along and better understand what we're talking about, you can find it on shanesbraindomain.com in the Aphantasia and Beyond section. If you are unable to take a look at the nature picture, it is a picture of a grove of tall trees with the sun shining brightly through the trees. There is a blue camping chair next to a peaceful flowing river with a campfire nearby. Do you have that nature picture that I sent you handy?
Yeah, let me just pull it up.
All right. Can you put yourself in that picture in your mind?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Can you see yourself there, or is it more like you are there?
I could imagine myself there.
Could you walk around and explore the area?
From just looking at it, not really.
Okay. Can you experience the weather in your mind? Like, can you feel the sun on your skin or the wind in your hair or anything like that?
If I'm imagining myself sitting on that chair, I can feel the heat in the back. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I can feel that part.
All right. What about the river? Can you hear the river?
Now that you mentioned it, I can hear a little bit, but not before.
Okay.
It's only if I focus on it that it comes to me.
Right. What about if you went over and like put your hands in the water or put your feet in the water? Could you feel that?
Yeah, I could feel the difference in temperatures.
Okay, that's really cool. You've got a lot of these other senses pretty well.
Yeah.
What about the campfire? If you went over to that campfire, could you feel its warmth? Could you hear it? Could you smell it?
Yes, but this is just me tapping into my memories of that part, not so much reliving it. I don't know if that makes sense.
Okay.
It's like I'm remembering when I was close to a fire and what it smelled like and how it felt like and how my clothes smelled afterwards.
Right. So if you're pulling up that memory, is that then taking you out of the picture? Are those two separate?
It is.
Okay.
It is, yeah.
You talked about sitting in the chair. Could you feel that? Could you feel the chair underneath you, kind of feel your weight or feel the fabric or anything?
I have the same kind of chair at home, so I could remember what it feels like to sit in one of those. Like going camping or something.
All right. So would you say that that experience was more of bringing back memories of similar things as opposed to actually feeling like you were there and experiencing the picture itself?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it has to do with tapping into focusing on certain aspects and then retrieving the memories associated with what that felt like
Okay.
more than being there. It's true.
All right. Okay. So out of the five senses that we've talked about, which one would you say is most powerful or prominent in your mind?
The hearing, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you read a novel, is it like a movie in your mind or something else?
Yeah, I can imagine some things going on, but it's channeled through the way it's described in the book, right? And I do have a hard time reading more and more. I've been opting more for the audiobooks now. I retain information way better that way. Just to give you an example of how that works, is I had been studying to get Canadian citizenship, and so I got this pamphlet, and I was reading it, and I was supposed to get an exam based on the textbooks, and I had a hard time memorizing it. I went out for a walk, listened to the audio version of it, came back home, and I was like, okay, I'm done. I remember everything now. So
Okay.
the way I process information is way more powerful if I hear it than if I look at it, if that makes any sense.
So how well can you visualize or imagine or think about the characters and the surroundings? Is it vague? Is it detailed? What is it like?
Oh, it's usually vague.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What about the sounds? Can you hear the characters' voices, or if a cannon went off in the book, in the story, could you hear that?
Not so much.
So you don't hear the characters speak or assign voices or anything like that. Okay. What does the phrase "the book was better than the movie" mean to you?
Well, I guess if it's from the narration point of view, you get more details from the thought process of the person, not so much the general outline of what's going on in the description, but the way the person thinks is usually, there's more details in the books than in the movies, for example. So I do enjoy that part, to get into the character's thoughts.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good thought. Sleep and dreams. We've already talked a little bit about this, but what do you do to fall asleep?
I usually listen to podcasts.
Okay.
Or audiobooks. And then at some point it helps me fall asleep. I do it almost every single evening. Yeah. Or sometimes when I'm just exhausted, I'll just sit in bed and fall asleep. But that's rare.
Okay. Do you think that works just because it turns off your own thoughts?
Yes, absolutely. It's like distracting it, like a magician's show. He needs to get your attention on this side, so then the other part gets like tricked. Right. So I have to do the same with my brain.
Okay. Do you dream?
I do dream. I don't remember most of it, but...
When you're dreaming, do you know you're dreaming?
No.
Is your dream experience different from what you experience in your mind when you're awake?
It's hard to tell. I do remember visual things. However, is it the same way I process the world like right now? Not sure.
Are your dreams vivid and detailed, or are they vague?
Usually vague.
Can you tell if your dreams are in color?
Yeah, I'd say they're in color.
Okay.
I don't really know exactly why I know this, but I would, no, they're in color.
Yeah. Okay. Are they in first person or third person?
First person.
Do you think there's a correlation between the vividness of a dream and if you can remember it or not?
Yeah, there's probably a correlation between the vividness and also the feelings that we'll get from it.
So you experience the other senses in your dreams as well?
Yeah, I think the feeling aspect is strong. The strong part of my memory will be associated with feelings, not so much the senses.
Okay. So that goes right into, we're going to talk a little bit more about the memories. When you're having a memory, is it like you're reliving it or is it like you're watching it?
Reliving it.
Okay. And so there is emotion attached to the memories.
Absolutely.
Right? And you said that's probably the strongest part of it all, the emotion.
Yes.
Okay. Are your memories experienced in first person, third person, or both, or neither?
I guess it starts with first person, but I can get to third person when I think about it.
Really? Okay. I hate to keep harping on this, but when you're having a first person versus a third person memory, is that a visual experience or is that more of just a thought?
So the first person will be what I'll remember, and then the third is when I'll analyze what's going on. But it's more from a thought perspective than a visual perspective, to be honest.
Okay. How would you describe how your mind stores information?
With feelings, always. I don't know how it works, but whenever there's a strong feeling, I'll remember it. But other than that, I forget everything.
Okay. Is that where the music thing helps?
That does help.
Because I'm assuming there's emotion attached to the music as well, right?
Absolutely.
No.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I've been journaling that way for a year and a half now. So I have quite a lot of samples to look into.
Okay. So we're talking about mind storage here. So when you say your memories or whatever are stored according to emotion, how does that work exactly? Like if you're trying to remember a certain thing, does the memory or the emotion happen first, if that makes any sense?
Yeah, it's hard to tell.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess the emotion comes first.
Okay. Do you associate your mind with an area or a space?
No, it's just like a general branching system, not so much any specific drawers or compartments or anything like that. Yeah. It feels more like looking at a tree and looking at branches. So there are a lot of branches everywhere, but you don't know exactly what branches, if it has a functionality or anything. It's just like branches everywhere. That's how I see it.
Oh, wow. That's cool. Another cool description that I've never heard before. I like that. I kind of glossed over this in the beginning, but I want to know how you discovered aphantasia and what it's meant to you, how it's changed your life and those kind of things. Just tell me your story a little bit.
Sure. So, I stumbled upon an article about this from someone who has hyperphantasia, which is the other way around.
Yeah.
And we often discuss how our mind functions, and discovering that explained a lot of the hypnosis I had been looking into that wasn't working on me because it was very, very visual.
Right.
Hypnosis is not purely visual, but like 80 to 90% of the stuff out there feels very visual, and it wasn't working on me. And I was like, well, maybe something's wrong with me.
Right.
Until I realized it was a thing not to be able to visualize. So now I stopped trying to go down that rabbit hole of exploring, like, there's this regressive hypnotherapy, trans shamanism, transcendental meditation. There's a lot of stuff out there that uses visuals.
Right.
And I was curious at that, but never worked with me. I found some aphantasia-friendly meditations, which is someone who focuses on how you feel and not what you see, which is interesting.
Right. The ones that like focus on breath and
exactly.
How you feel, and those work better.
As it's still new, I feel there's more to explore in the future. So we'll see how that goes.
Okay, very good.
Because I want to reach out to hypnotherapists and question them on, like, is this something that you come across regularly? What's your way around this kind of stuff? How does this work?
There are actually some that are fairly hostile to the idea. They don't believe it's true.
Okay, well.
And I've heard them express those feelings, and there's others that I think are a little more open-minded to that. And that's one of the things I hope to do with my podcast and the books and the things I do is just get more awareness out there to people that this thing is real.
Well, if it's invisible, it's tough to explain it to people.
Yeah. Let's talk about your career real quick, or just, professional life in general. Do you think that the way your mind works has had an effect on that in any way?
I don't visualize things in general, but I connect things through systems. So the way my mind works is when someone talks to me about something, someone else talks to me about something else, and my mind kind of connects them as if it was like a logical process. So I like gathering data, and then my mind on its own puts it together as a system. And usually when I explain it to people, people don't understand at all. And so I usually draw it out to people so then they understand, because people are mostly visual.
Right.
But this system thing happens in my head without me visualizing it. But as an output, I can draw it for people to understand. And I've been doing that my whole career.
Do you think if you could visualize better, it would be more effective, or do you think it works really great the way it works?
Well, I like the fact that I don't visualize because I don't assume people will see the same thing. I like to use symbols, and then when you use a symbol, people can interpret it their own way, whether it be visually or from memory or whatnot. So maybe that's why I tap into that metaphor, imagine your own symbol kind of analogy when I try to bring new concepts to people in my work environment.
Do you think your visualization or lack thereof played any role in school?
Yeah, I sucked in geometry.
Me too.
Yeah, and geography.
Yeah, me too. If you could wave a magic wand and get rid of your aphantasia, would you do it?
Well, I do believe in magic, but not that kind of magic. So, no, I would keep it for sure.
Okay.
I mean, I'm curious of what's on the other side, but I also like to believe that everything happens for a reason, even if it's shitty or weird or different. So I think this is just the universe telling me there are other ways of figuring out what you're trying to figure out. So just focus on that and not the visual part now, and they'll come to you eventually.
Right. What are some of the upsides to having aphantasia, and what are some of the downsides?
If you see too many visuals and you have some form of PTSD, then you'll get traumatic flashbacks. An upside of having aphantasia is you don't get that. Yeah. You can remember the feeling, but you won't see the scene specifically. So that helps. I also like the fact that if you can see the world through a different lens or not see it through a different lens, that's actually kind of like if you have different regions in your brain that have specific functionalities like seeing, sensing, or whatnot, then you will develop other regions in your brain. But if we live in a society that's purely focused on the visual aspect, then it might be a strength to not be able to think in that way and perhaps come with like different ideas from a different realm. I like to see it that way too. The whole spiritual realm of visualizing to manifest, then how does it work if you can't visualize? So that's still something I'm trying to figure out.
Yep, me too. All right. That's pretty much it. Is there anything else you would like to say or talk about before we go?
This has been a very pleasant and enlightening experience for me. Asking all these questions are going to stay with me. So thank you very much for being so curious. It's getting me even more curious.
All right. Well, thanks again. Thank you for your time. Thanks for agreeing to come on, and have a fantastic day.
You too. Have a good one.
All right.
Thank you
Take
very
care.
much.
If you like what you hear, please subscribe, follow, and engage with us, and share it with your friends and family as we continue to explore this fascinating subject. For additional information about this episode or Shane's Brain, check out the show notes. Thanks for listening to the Discovering Your Mind podcast. You are beautifully unique.